It was a sunny morning in the middle of the city. People were rushing to work, holding coffee cups and checking their phones. Cars honked and footsteps echoed on the busy sidewalk. In front of a small coffee shop, a man stood alone. He was calm and quiet. He wore a clean black suit and shiny shoes. He had a short beard and dark sunglasses. In his hand, he held a phone, typing something quickly. He didn't look lost or confused. He looked focused. But for some reason, people still stared. A young police officer, Officer Ryan, stood across the street. He watched the man for a few minutes. He didn't like how confident the man looked. In Ryan's mind, anyone just standing around on the street must be up to no good, especially someone who didn't look like he belonged. He crossed the road. "Hey," the officer said, walking up to him. "What are you doing here?" The man looked up, calm. "Just waiting for someone," he replied. "Waiting?" the officer repeated. "For who?" "My friend. He's bringing something I forgot at home," the man said politely. Officer Ryan looked him up and down. "Got any ID?" The man raised an eyebrow. "Did I do something wrong, officer?" Ryan didn't like the answer. "I asked you a question. Show me some ID." The man took a breath and looked around. People nearby had started to notice. A few even pulled out their phones to record. The man still didn't panic. He simply said, "I'm not breaking any law. I'm standing on a public sidewalk. Is there a reason you're stopping me?" Ryan's voice grew louder. "I asked for ID. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Still, the man didn't argue. He looked straight into Ryan's eyes and said, "You're making a mistake." Those words hit the air like thunder. Ryan didn't understand. "Excuse me?" "You're making a mistake," the man repeated. "You don't know who I am, and you haven't asked. You've only judged." The tension grew. Two more officers arrived. One of them, Officer Harris, was older. When he saw the man in the suit, his eyes widened in surprise. "Wait," Officer Harris said, stepping between them. "Ryan, back up for a second." "What?" He refused to show ID. Officer Harris looked at the man and nodded respectfully. "Sir, I didn't know it was you." Now the crowd was really paying attention. The man simply nodded. "It's all right, Officer Harris." But Ryan was confused. "Who is he?" Harris pulled Ryan aside and whispered something quickly. Ryan's face changed. His mouth opened slightly. His hands went stiff. He turned and looked at the man again, but now with fear in his eyes. I didn't know," Ryan mumbled. The man spoke gently, but firmly. "That's the problem. You didn't ask. You assumed." He slowly reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a leather badge holder. He opened it just enough for the camera phones to catch a glimpse. FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The crowd gasped. One woman whispered, "He's FBI?" The man carefully put the badge back. "I didn't show it because I wanted to see how far this would go." He turned to Ryan. "And you went too far." Officer Ryan couldn't speak. His arrogance had turned into shame. The man looked at the cameras. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened. But today people were watching. Today I didn't raise my voice. I didn't push back. I just stood still." He pointed to his head. "Because I knew who I was." And with that, he turned and walked away. The crowd watched him go, whispering, recording, stunned. No one said a word, but one journalist in the crowd, Sarah, stayed behind. She wasn't just shocked, she was curious. Who was this man? What did he do for the FBI? Why didn't he fight back even when he was being harassed? She made up her mind right there. "I'm going to find out his story," she whispered to herself, and what she would discover would shock the world. After the tense scene on the sidewalk, the crowd started to scatter slowly. Some people whispered about what they had just seen. Others kept watching the man in the black suit as he walked away, calm and unbothered. "Officer," Ryan stood frozen for a moment. His face was pale, and his pride was gone. He didn't know what to say or do. The older officer, Harris, put a hand on his shoulder. "Ryan," Harris said softly, "we need to handle this carefully." Ryan nodded. But inside, he was confused and angry at himself. How could he have been so wrong? Meanwhile, the man, whose name was James, walked to a nearby bench and sat down. He looked around quietly, his eyes scanning the busy street. James had a long day ahead. He was waiting for a meeting with a community leader, someone who worked, to improve the neighborhood where he had grown up. Even though James was an FBI agent, he never forgot where he came from. This meeting was important to him. He wanted to help change things for the better. Back on the street, more police officers arrived. They had heard about the incident and wanted to support Ryan, but Officer Harris stopped them. "This is not a simple street stop," Harris said. "We need to understand who we are dealing with before jumping to conclusions." Some officers grumbled but followed orders. As Ryan stood with his fellow officers, a young woman in the crowd raised her phone. "She was recording everything. Why did you stop him?" she asked loudly. "He did nothing wrong." Ryan looked uncomfortable but said, "He didn't want to show ID. That's suspicious." The crowd grew louder, some shouting back, "He didn't break any law, and you can't judge someone by how they look." Ryan tried to speak again but was drowned out by the voices. The older officer, Harris, pulled Ryan aside and showed him a message on his phone. "It's from the FBI. James is an undercover agent in our city. He's been working on cases for years." Ryan's eyes widened. "Undercover? I had no idea." Harris shook his head. "You should never judge anyone without knowing their story. Today, you learned the hard way." At the same time, James finished his meeting with the community leader. They talked about how police and citizens could work together better. James believed that respect and trust were the most important things. He was ready to leave when his phone rang. It was the news reporter Sarah from the crowd earlier. "I want to tell your story, James," she said. "People need to know the truth." James smiled quietly. Maybe it's time. Back at the police station, Ryan sat alone. He thought about his actions. He felt ashamed. He realized that his fear and bias had blinded him. He decided he wanted to learn and change. He sent a message to Harris, asking if James could help train officers about respect and fairness. Harris smiled and replied, "That's a good start." Meanwhile, the video of the street incident had gone viral online. Comments poured in. Some people praised James for his calm and strength. Others criticized Ryan for his harsh behavior. Many said it was a sign that change was needed in the police force. As the day ended, James walked through the city streets again. He thought about the future. He was ready to fight, not with anger, but with truth and courage. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was not afraid. The next morning, the city woke up to news about the man in the black suit and the arrogant cop. The video of the street stop was everywhere, on phones, on TV, and on social media. Everyone was talking about it. The headline on one news site read, "FBI agent harassed by local police." Why? People wanted to know more. Who was this man? Why did the police stop him? And why did he stay so calm? James, the FBI agent, was already feeling the weight of the attention. But he stayed quiet, not answering many questions. He believed his work should speak for itself. He lived a simple life, far from the bright lights of fame. His neighbors saw him as just another quiet man who sometimes helped fix things around the block. But behind that calm face was a story few knew. Sarah, the reporter, was determined to tell that story. She called James and asked for an interview. At first, he said no. "My job is secret," he told her. "I can't share everything." But Sarah didn't give up. She said, "People need to know who you really are. Not just the badge, but the man behind it." After some thought, James agreed. At a small cafe, James sat across from Sarah. The place was quiet, far from the busy streets. Tell me, Sarah began, why didn't you show your badge right away? Why let the cop treat you like that? James took a deep breath. Because I wanted to see how far it would go. I wanted to feel what it's like for many people every day, being judged before they are known. Sarah nodded, surprised by his honesty. James told her about his childhood. He grew up in a tough neighborhood where people didn't trust the police. As a boy, I saw how fear and anger made things worse, he said softly. I wanted to be different. He worked hard in school and joined the FBI to help people who had no voice. My work is quiet. I don't wear medals or tell stories. I protect people in secret, Sarah asked about the moment on the street. I could have shouted or used my badge to stop the officer, James said. But I didn't want to win that way. I wanted to teach him a lesson about respect. He paused. Respect is not about power. It's about understanding. After the interview, Sarah wrote a story that touched many hearts. It was about a man who fought not just criminals, but also unfairness and prejudice. The story spread quickly. People sent messages of support to James. Some police officers reached out, wanting to learn from him. Back at the police station, Officer Ryan read the story. He felt ashamed, but also hopeful. Maybe this was a chance to change, not just for him, but for all who judged too quickly. James returned to his daily life, but things had changed. He was no longer just a quiet man on the sidewalk. He had become a symbol, a reminder that sometimes the strongest fight is the fight for respect and dignity. The day after Sarah's story was published, James woke up to a flood of messages. Some were from friends and family, but many came from strangers. People thanked him for his courage. They said his story gave them hope. But not everyone was happy. Some police officers felt embarrassed. They didn't like being shown in a bad light. Some wrote angry comments online. Others whispered behind closed doors. James knew that change was never easy. At the police station, Officer Ryan sat at his desk. He read the messages and watched the video again. He still felt the weight of what had happened. His phone rang. It was Officer Harris. We're setting up a meeting, Harris said. James has agreed to come and talk to the force. Ryan swallowed hard. He was nervous, but knew he had to go. Meanwhile, James prepared for the meeting. He wanted to be honest and open. He thought about the men and women in uniform who risked their lives every day. He wanted them to understand the pain of being judged without a chance. The day of the meeting arrived. The police station was full of officers. Some looked curious, others skeptical. James stood at the front of the room. He began quietly. I'm not here to blame anyone, he said. I'm here to share my story, so we can all learn. He talked about his childhood, the hard streets, and the lessons he learned. He spoke about respect, trust, and fairness. Then he told them about the day on the sidewalk, how Officer Ryan stopped him without reason. But I didn't get angry, James said. I stayed calm to show what many people feel every day, being stopped, watched, and judged. He looked around the room. We all want safety, but safety is built on trust, not fear. Some officers shifted in their seats. Ryan raised his hand. James, he said quietly, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I judged you because of how you looked. I didn't ask questions. I didn't listen. James nodded. It's not about blame, it's about change. The room was silent for a moment. Then Harris spoke. We need training. We need to understand our community better. The chief of police stood up. Starting next week, James will help us train officers on respect and fairness. The officers nodded. Outside the station, Sarah waited. She saw James leave. She smiled. Thank you for doing this. James smiled back. The real work begins now. As James walked away, he felt hope. Maybe one day, no one would be judged by their skin or their clothes. Maybe respect would be the first thing everyone saw. After the meeting, changes began slowly. At the police station, Officer Ryan was determined to do better. He wanted to learn how to treat everyone with respect. He attended every training session James held. At first, it was hard. Ryan had to face his own mistakes. But day by day, he started to understand James was patient and kind during the training. He shared stories from his life and work. He showed the officers how small actions could build or break trust. The officers listened. Some asked questions. Some shared their own experiences. Ryan felt something changing inside him. He wanted to be a better officer, one who helped, not hurt. Outside the training room, the community began to notice the change. People talked about the new attitude of the police. One day, a young boy named Malik saw Ryan talking kindly to an elderly woman. Malik smiled. He remembered the stories his mother told him about the police being scary. Now, things felt different. At the same time, James kept working quietly. He went to schools and community centers to talk about respect and hope. One evening, James met Malik and his mother. They thanked him for helping to bring respect back to the neighborhood. James smiled and said, "It's not just me. It's all of us working together." Back at the police station, Ryan faced a test. A man was accused of stealing from a store. Ryan was the first officer on the scene. He saw the man was nervous and scared. Instead of jumping to conclusions, Ryan talked calmly. He listened carefully. After a few minutes, Ryan realized the man was innocent. The real thief was someone else. Ryan felt proud. This was the change he wanted to be. News about Ryan's fair actions spread. People began to trust the police more. The community and police worked together to keep the streets safe. James and Ryan became friends. They knew their work was not done, but they had hope. One day, Sarah interviewed Ryan. "How did you change?" she asked. Ryan looked thoughtful. "I learned to see people, not just suspects. I learned respect is the strongest power we have." As the sun set over the city, James and Ryan stood together. "We started something important," James said. Ryan nodded. "A second chance, for all of us." Life was changing in the city. The police were trying hard to build trust with the people. James and Ryan worked together every day to bring respect and fairness to their community. But sometimes the past does not stay hidden for long. One rainy afternoon, James received a call. His face turned serious. "There's trouble," he told Ryan. "Old enemies from my past have come back." Ryan frowned. "What kind of trouble?" James looked out of the window. "People who don't want change. People who want to keep fear and hate alive." That night, James could not sleep. Memories of hard times came back. Times when he had to fight not only criminals but also his own fears. He thought about the streets where he grew up, the people he lost, the promises he made to himself. He knew the fight was not just outside, but also inside. The next day, James and Ryan met with the police chief. "We have to be ready," James said. "These old enemies may try to stop the progress." The chief nodded. "We will stand together." Meanwhile, the enemies started to act. They spread lies about James and the police. They tried to make people afraid again. The city began to feel tense. Old fears returned. James and Ryan decided to face the problem directly. They organized a community meeting. People from all over the neighborhood came. Some were angry, some were scared, and some were hopeful. James spoke first. "I know change is hard," he said, "but fear will never build a better future. Only trust and respect can." Ryan followed. "We are not perfect," he said, "but we are trying. We want to protect and serve all of you." Slowly, the crowd began to listen. They asked questions. They shared their stories. The meeting was long, but by the end, a small hope grew in the room. Later, James walked through the neighborhood. He saw children playing and neighbors talking. He knew the road ahead would be full of shadows, but also light. He was ready to face whatever came next. The city woke up to a fresh morning. The sun shone bright, cutting through the last fog of fear that had lingered in the streets. James stood on the corner where the fight had started weeks ago. He looked around and saw a city slowly healing. Officer Ryan walked up beside him. "It feels different now," he said softly. James nodded. "Yes. It's not perfect, but it's real." Ryan smiled. People are starting to believe again. The police station had changed too. Training was now a regular part of every officer's day. Respect and fairness were no longer just words, they were actions. The community worked with the police. They shared their fears, hopes, and dreams. Together, they built a new kind of safety, one based on trust. One evening, James received a message from Sarah, the reporter. "Your story has touched many lives," she wrote. "People are talking about respect and change because of you." James smiled but stayed humble. "It's not just me. It's all of us. Together." As weeks passed, the city's mood lifted. The angry voices grew quieter. The shadows from the past started to fade. James and Ryan continued their work. Every day brought new challenges, but also new chances. One afternoon, James visited Malik, the young boy who had watched the changes with hope. Malik looked up at James and said, "Thank you for showing me that people can change." James knelt down and said, "You are the future, Malik. Keep believing." Back on the sidewalk, James saw a man walking by. It was the same street where everything had started. This time the man smiled and nodded. No fear, no anger, just respect. James took a deep breath. A new dawn had come, not just for the city, but for everyone who believed in the power of respect, courage, and second chances.